My sister-in-law announced my pregnancy before I could at my own baby shower, and for one terrible moment, everyone clapped while I felt my heart fall straight into my stomach. I was sitting in a chair covered with white ribbon, one hand resting over the small curve of my belly, smiling the kind of smile women give when they are trying not to cry in public. The room was full of pink balloons, soft music, little glass jars of candy, and people who had come to celebrate me. At least that was what I thought. Then Vanessa stood up, took the microphone from my mother-in-law, and turned my most private joy into her performance. She did not ask me. She did not look at me. She simply lifted her glass and told everyone what I had waited months to say myself. And before I could even breathe, she raised an ultrasound photo in the air like proof that she knew my life better than I did. Before that day, I really believed I was building the kind of family I had prayed for. My husband Daniel and I had been married for 3 years, and our life was simple, but it felt safe. We lived in a small blue house at the end of a quiet street, the kind of house where the kitchen window faced the sunrise and the floors creaked in the hallway when one of us got up at night. Daniel worked long hours as an electrician, and I taught preschool, which meant I spent my days tying shoelaces, wiping tears, reading picture books, and being called Miss Emily by children who thought glue sticks were treasure. We were not rich, but we had routines. Sunday pancakes, grocery lists stuck to the fridge, late-night talks on the porch when the house was dark and the world felt soft around us. When I found out I was pregnant, I did not tell anyone right away. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was scared to believe something so beautiful could truly belong to me. I had lost a pregnancy the year before, very early, before most people even knew. The doctor had called it common, but nothing about it felt common when I lay awake at night with one hand on my empty stomach. Daniel held me through that pain, and after that, we both became careful with hope. So when the second test showed 2 lines, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried quietly until Daniel knocked on the door. He thought something was wrong. When I opened it and showed him the test, he dropped to his knees in front of me and pressed his forehead against my belly like he was already speaking to our child. For the first few months, we protected the news like a candle in the wind. We told only my doctor, then later my best friend Claire, because I needed someone to talk to when fear became too heavy. We decided that if everything looked good after the next appointment, we would announce the pregnancy at the baby shower Daniel's mother insisted on planning. It sounded strange to have a shower before a public announcement, but in our family, nothing was simple. Daniel's mother, Linda, said it would be a celebration of new beginnings, and that the close relatives already suspected anyway. I wanted one day where Joy did not have to fight for space. I wanted to stand in front of the people we loved and say, with my own voice, that our baby was okay, that I was okay, that our little family was growing. Vanessa was Daniel's older brother's wife, and from the first day I met her, I knew she liked to own every room she entered. She was beautiful in a sharp way, always perfectly dressed, always speaking a little louder than necessary, always turning ordinary conversations into stories about herself. At my bridal shower, she arrived late in a white lace dress and joked that she looked more like the bride than I did. At our wedding reception, she cried during the speeches because she said marriage reminded her of her own struggles, even though she and Mark had only been married 6 months and seemed fine. When Daniel got promoted, she told everyone Mark had helped him make connections, which was not true. She never did anything obvious enough for people to call cruel. She simply took small pieces of other people's happiness and polished them until they reflected her. I tried to be patient with her because everyone else did. Linda called Vanessa sensitive. Mark called her passionate. Daniel called her complicated, but harmless. I learned to smile when she interrupted me, to laugh when she made little jokes about my clothes, my cooking, my quiet voice. She had a way of touching my arm while insulting me, as if softness made the words less sharp. When she found out Daniel and I were trying for a baby, she started giving advice I never asked for. She told me not to get my hopes up too much. She told me motherhood changed women and not always in flattering ways. Once, at Thanksgiving, she said in front of everyone that some women were born to be mothers, and others had to grow into the role. Then she looked at me with a sweet smile and asked which one I thought I was. Still, I did not expect what happened at the shower. I had spent the morning getting ready slowly, almost carefully, like the day might break if I moved too fast. I wore a pale blue dress because Daniel and I had decided not to reveal the baby's gender yet. My hair was curled by Claire, who kept telling me I looked radiant, even when my hands shook while I put on earrings. Daniel kissed my cheek before we left and told me that by the end of the day, everyone would know our good news, and I would not have to carry the secret alone anymore. I remember looking at him in the hallway, his shirt slightly wrinkled because he had ironed it himself, his eyes bright with nervous joy, and thinking that maybe this was what healing felt like. The shower was held in Linda's backyard under a white tent. There were round tables with linen cloths, little centerpieces shaped like clouds, and a dessert table covered with cupcakes, lemon bars, and a cake decorated with tiny silver stars. A banner stretched between two trees with the words, "Welcome, little one," painted in soft gold letters. People hugged me as I arrived, some carefully, some too tightly, whispering that I looked wonderful, that motherhood suited me, that they were so happy for us. Every compliment made me blush, because technically most of them were pretending not to know what they already knew. But that was part of the sweetness. The whole day felt like a held breath, waiting for the moment when Daniel and I would finally make it real. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes late, of course. She came through the side gate wearing a cream-colored dress that clung to her body and heels completely wrong for grass. She carried a gift bag almost as large as her torso and made a little scene about how hard it had been to find something special enough. Linda rushed over to greet her, and several women turned to admire her outfit. I watched from my chair as Vanessa kissed cheeks, laughed loudly, and placed one hand over her own flat stomach when someone joked that she would be next. She looked at me then, just for a second, and her smile changed. It was still pretty, still polished, but there was something underneath it that made my skin tighten. For the first hour, everything stayed almost normal. We played the usual games. People guessed baby names, measured ribbon around my belly, and wrote advice cards that ranged from sweet to ridiculous. Daniel stood near the drink table with Mark and a few cousins, pretending not to be emotional. But every few minutes his eyes found mine. I kept waiting for the right time. Linda had planned a small toast after lunch, and Daniel and I were supposed to stand together, thank everyone, and share the news properly. I had even written a few lines in my phone because I knew I might cry. I wanted to say that after a season of fear, this baby felt like light returning to our house. I wanted to say that hope had a heartbeat. Then Linda tapped a spoon against her glass and asked everyone to gather near the main table. My chest fluttered. Daniel crossed the yard toward me, his face soft and nervous. Claire squeezed my shoulder from behind. This was it. This was the moment I had imagined during every anxious appointment. Every night I woke up afraid. Every morning I whispered a prayer before checking for signs that something was wrong. I stood carefully, smoothing my dress over my belly. Daniel reached for my hand. But before Linda could introduce us, Vanessa stepped forward and took the microphone from the small speaker stand beside the cake. She did it so smoothly that for half a second no one understood she was interrupting. She smiled at the crowd and said she knew everyone was waiting for the big announcement, so she would save us the trouble. A few people laughed, thinking it was a joke. I did not. My fingers went cold inside Daniel's hand. Vanessa turned slightly toward me, her eyes bright with something that was not kindness, and told everyone that Daniel and Emily were expecting a healthy baby. The yard erupted in applause. Someone gasped. Someone shouted congratulations. Linda covered her mouth and started crying. Daniel stiffened beside me. I stood there frozen while the sound washed over me. All that happiness aimed in my direction but stolen from my mouth before I could shape it myself. I wanted to speak, but my throat closed. Vanessa kept going. She said she knew I was shy and emotional, so she thought she would help me share the wonderful news. She called herself the proud aunt. She talked about how hard the journey had been for our family, as if my loss was a public chapter she had permission to read aloud. She said this baby was already loved by everyone, especially by her, because she had a special bond with little miracles. People kept smiling, but the smiles began to falter around the edges. Claire moved closer to me. Daniel dropped my hand and took one step forward, but Mark caught his arm, muttering something I could not hear. Then Vanessa reached into her gift bag and pulled out a framed ultrasound photo. My breath stopped completely. She held it up to the crowd, tilted it for everyone to see, and announced that she had brought a surprise because every baby shower deserved a first picture of the little star. Cameras lifted. Guests leaned in. Linda made a soft crying sound. My mother, who had been standing near the lemonade table, stared at the frame with a confused smile. I could not move. I knew the shape of my ultrasound images. I knew how they looked folded in the envelope in my dresser drawer, hidden beneath my sweaters. I knew I had never given one to Vanessa. Daniel's voice cut through the applause, low and controlled, asking where she got that. Vanessa laughed as if he had teased her. She said family had ways of finding things, and that it was all done with love. The way she said love made my stomach twist. I looked at the photo again, trying to understand what I was seeing from across the yard. It was black and white, grainy, mounted in a silver frame with a tiny bow on top. At first, all ultrasound pictures look similar to people who are not trained to read them. A small shape, a curve, a shadow, a promise. But something about that image felt wrong. Not just wrong because she had it. Wrong in a way I could not name. I stepped forward before I realized I was moving. The grass felt uneven under my sandals. My face burned as every eye turned toward me. Vanessa still smiled, but her fingers tightened around the frame. I asked her where she got it. My voice sounded thin, almost childish. She tilted her head and told me not to ruin the moment. She said she had gone through a lot of effort to make the day special. I asked again. This time, the yard became quiet enough that I could hear the ice shifting in the drink dispenser. Vanessa glanced toward Linda, then toward Mark, and said it had been in a folder at the house, and that I should be more careful with precious memories. That made no sense. Vanessa had not been inside my house in weeks, and the only ultrasound folder I had was in my bedroom, inside a drawer, under clothes. Daniel knew it. Claire knew it. No one else did. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might faint. Daniel came to my side and took the frame from Vanessa's hand before she could pull it back. For one sharp second, Vanessa's mask slipped. Her smile vanished, and something panicked flashed across her face. Then she recovered, lifting her chin and telling Daniel he was embarrassing her in front of everyone. She said she was only trying to celebrate us. But Daniel was no longer listening. He turned the frame toward me. Up close, the image was clearer. There was a name printed along the top edge, partly cut off by the frame. My eyes searched the letters, expecting to see mine, needing to see mine, terrified that I would. But the name was not fully visible. Only the first letter and part of the last name showed. The date in the corner made my stomach sink. It was not the date of my appointment. It was 2 days earlier. I looked at the small white shape in the center of the picture, then at the numbers along the side, then at Vanessa, whose face had gone pale beneath her makeup. A strange silence spread through the yard like spilled ink. Linda tried to laugh it off. She said maybe the clinic printed the wrong date, or maybe I was confused because pregnancy made women forgetful. A few people chuckled nervously, grateful for any explanation that would let the party continue. But I was not confused. I knew every date. I knew every appointment. I knew the exact moment Daniel and I heard the heartbeat because I had replayed it in my mind whenever fear came back. This picture was not from that day, and if it was not from that day, then either Vanessa had stolen something from somewhere else, or someone had handed her a document that did not belong to me. Vanessa reached for the frame, but Daniel held it away from her. He asked again, more firmly, where she got it. Mark stepped in then, angry and red-faced, telling Daniel not to speak to his wife like a criminal. The word criminal landed strangely among the balloons and cupcakes. No one had said anything about a crime, not yet. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, quick and practiced. She said she had wanted to do something beautiful because I never included her. She said I made her feel like an outsider in her own family. She said I always acted fragile so everyone would protect me. With every sentence, the crowd shifted, unsure where to place their sympathy. I wish I could tell you I defended myself with strength right away. I wish I could say I stood tall and exposed her in that moment. But the truth is, I felt small. I felt like the same woman who had sat in a doctor's office after losing a baby, nodding while people told me my grief was natural, common, something I would survive. Vanessa had taken that pain and used it as decoration. She had taken my new hope and turned it into entertainment. And now she was crying as if I had hurt her by noticing. My hands began to shake so badly that Claire wrapped an arm around my waist. Daniel told everyone the party was over. His voice was calm, but I knew him well enough to hear the anger underneath. Linda protested immediately, saying we could not send guests away over a misunderstanding. My mother walked toward me with worry in her eyes, asking if I needed to sit down. Someone in the back whispered that this was getting uncomfortable. Vanessa covered her face with both hands, but I saw her peeking between her fingers to measure the room. Even then, even in the middle of the mess she created, she was watching to see who believed her. I took the frame from Daniel and looked at it again. The partial name at the top seemed to pulse under my eyes. The first letter was not E. The last name did not look like mine or Daniel's. The clinic logo was the same as mine, which made everything worse, not better. My doctor's office, my hospital network, my supposed private records. I felt something colder than humiliation move through me. This was no longer just about a stolen announcement. This was about access, about boundaries crossed in ways I did not yet understand, about a photo that had no reason to be in Vanessa's hands. The guests began leaving in small, awkward waves. Some hugged me gently. Some avoided my eyes. A few told Vanessa they hoped she was okay, which hurt more than I expected. Linda rushed around apologizing to people as if the ruined party belonged to her. Mark took Vanessa aside near the garden fence, speaking low and fast while she wiped tears from under her lashes. Daniel stayed beside me, one hand on my back, the other holding his phone as he called the clinic's after-hours number. I stood under the white tent, surrounded by gifts I no longer wanted to open, staring at the cake with silver stars melting slightly in the afternoon heat. When Daniel finally reached someone, he explained that an ultrasound image from their office might have been shared without permission. He gave my name, my date of birth, my doctor's name. The nurse on the line became very quiet. I could not hear her words, only Daniel's answers. Yes, we had the image. No, we had not authorized anyone else to receive it. Yes, the printed date seemed wrong. No, the full patient name was covered by the frame. Then Daniel looked at me, and all the color had drained from his face. He ended the call and said the clinic wanted me to come in first thing Monday morning with the photo. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed with the framed ultrasound lying face down beside me. Daniel wanted to break the frame open, but something stopped me. Maybe fear, maybe instinct, maybe the feeling that once we saw the full name, we would cross a line we could never uncross. My phone kept lighting up with messages. Some were loving, some were nosy, some were from relatives asking if Vanessa was okay. Vanessa herself sent one long message saying she forgave me for overreacting and hoped pregnancy hormones would not damage our relationship permanently. I read it twice, then turned my phone off before I threw it across the room. Daniel knelt in front of me the way he had when I showed him the pregnancy test. But this time his face was full of worry. He apologized even though none of it was his fault. He said he should have stopped Vanessa sooner. He said he should have protected the moment better. I placed my hand over his and told him I did not care about the announcement anymore. That was only partly true. I cared deeply. But underneath that pain, a larger fear had opened. Someone had accessed an ultrasound image connected to my clinic. Someone had placed it in a frame. Someone had carried it into my baby shower and used it like a weapon wrapped in ribbon. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vanessa smiling with the microphone in her hand. I heard the applause after she stole my words. I saw the ultrasound raised above the crowd like a trophy. Around 3 in the morning, I got out of bed and walked to the nursery we had barely started preparing. There was only a rocking chair, a stack of unopened paint samples, and one tiny pair of socks Daniel had bought after our first good appointment. I sat in the chair and held the socks against my chest. I told myself the baby was safe. I told myself the doctor would explain everything. I told myself Vanessa was cruel but not dangerous. By sunrise, I no longer believed that. Daniel found me in the nursery with the framed ultrasound in my lap. I had finally turned it over and loosened the back of the frame with trembling fingers. The full image was exposed now. The name at the top was visible. It was not mine. It was not anyone in Daniel's family. But beneath the name, in the corner near the date, there was a note printed so small I had missed it before. It listed a follow-up code, a medical marker, and one word that made the room tilt around me. Urgent. I did not tell anyone about the word right away. I simply stared at it while the morning light crept across the nursery floor. Urgent. One small word, printed in tiny letters near the bottom of an ultrasound image that clearly did not belong to me. My hands shook so badly that I nearly dropped the frame. Daniel sat beside me in silence, reading the image again and again as if repetition might make it transform into something harmless. But it did not. Every detail only made the situation stranger. The wrong patient name. The wrong appointment date. The unfamiliar medical notes. None of it should have been in our house. None of it should have been at my baby shower. And none of it explained how Vanessa had gotten her hands on it. The drive to the clinic on Monday morning felt longer than it actually was. Daniel kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other wrapped around mine. The city moved around us as usual. People walked dogs. Coffee shops opened their doors. School buses stopped at corners. The ordinary world continued while my mind replayed the events of the baby shower over and over. Every time I reached the moment where Vanessa held up the framed image, my stomach twisted. I kept wondering whether she knew the ultrasound was not mine. Had she realized it before the party? Had she discovered it afterward? Or had she simply grabbed whatever she could find and assumed nobody would notice? The more I thought about it, the less any explanation made sense. The clinic administrator met us personally when we arrived. Her name was Susan, and she looked far more serious than someone greeting a routine patient. She escorted us into a private office instead of a waiting room. The moment she closed the door, she asked to see the image. Daniel handed over the frame carefully. Susan studied it for several seconds before her expression tightened. She immediately recognized the patient identification number printed along the edge. I could see it in her face before she spoke. She knew exactly what she was looking at. That realization sent a chill through me. Whatever had happened, this was not a misunderstanding involving a random photograph. This was something real. Susan explained that patient records were protected by strict privacy laws. Ultrasound images could not simply appear outside medical systems without a serious breach. She asked detailed questions about Vanessa. Had she ever worked at the hospital? Did she know any clinic employees? Had she ever accompanied me to an appointment? The answer to all three questions was no. Vanessa had never set foot inside the clinic with me. She had never met my doctor. As far as I knew, she did not know anyone who worked there. Susan wrote everything down carefully. The more she wrote, the more concerned she seemed. At one point, she left the room for nearly 20 minutes, returning with a second administrator and someone from the hospital's compliance department. While they investigated, my doctor, Dr. Reynolds, examined me. The appointment itself should have reassured me. The baby looked healthy. The heartbeat was strong. Growth measurements were normal. Every part of the examination suggested that my pregnancy was progressing exactly as it should. Yet I could not relax. Even hearing the heartbeat failed to calm me completely. Part of my mind remained trapped in the mystery surrounding the stolen image. Dr. Reynolds noticed my anxiety immediately. She squeezed my shoulder gently and reminded me that whatever was happening with the records had nothing to do with my baby's health. I nodded, but fear does not always listen to logic. After the examination, Dr. Reynolds sat across from us with a folder in her lap. She explained that the image Vanessa displayed had indeed come from their system. However, it belonged to another patient entirely. The patient was not connected to me, not connected to Daniel, not connected to anyone in our family. There was absolutely no legitimate reason for that image to have left hospital records. The compliance officer joined the conversation and explained that an internal investigation had already begun. Access logs would reveal which employees had viewed the file. Every action inside the system left a digital trail. Someone had opened that patient's records. Someone had printed the image, and someone had removed it from the clinic. For a brief moment, I felt relieved. At least we knew the image was not mine. At least my personal records had not been exposed. But that relief lasted less than a minute. Because if Vanessa had not obtained my ultrasound, why had she chosen this one? How had she even acquired it? The question hung over everything. The compliance officer admitted they could not answer that yet. Investigations took time. They would review employee activity, security footage, printer records, and access logs. They would contact the patient involved. They would determine whether criminal charges were appropriate. Criminal charges. Hearing those words out loud made the situation feel suddenly larger than family drama. The news spread through the family faster than I expected. Linda called that afternoon asking for updates. When I explained that the image belonged to another patient, she fell silent. For the first time since the baby shower, she did not immediately defend Vanessa. Instead, she asked whether there might be some mistake. I told her the hospital had already confirmed the information. The image was stolen. There was no confusion. There was no misunderstanding. Linda sighed heavily and said she would talk to Vanessa herself. I thanked her, but I doubted it would help. Vanessa had always been skilled at turning conversations into sympathy for herself. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Vanessa. I considered ignoring the call, but answered anyway. Her voice sounded unusually calm. Too calm. She asked how the appointment went. I told her the image did not belong to me. There was a pause. Just a fraction of a second. But it was enough. It sounded less like surprise and more like calculation. Then she laughed lightly and said that was impossible. She claimed the image came from a folder labeled with my name. I asked how she got into that folder. Her answer changed twice within the same conversation. First, she said she found it during a family visit. Then she said Linda gave it to her accidentally. Then she said maybe she had mixed up some paperwork while helping organize baby gifts. None of her explanations matched. When I pointed out the contradictions, Vanessa became defensive. She accused me of attacking her. She said she had only wanted to celebrate my pregnancy. She said I was turning a kind gesture into a witch hunt. By the end of the call, she was crying again. The same tears she always used whenever facts cornered her. I hung up feeling exhausted. Daniel listened quietly while I repeated the conversation. When I finished, he shook his head. He had reached a point I never thought possible. For the first time in our relationship, he openly admitted that Vanessa might be capable of far worse behavior than anyone had previously believed. Over the next week, small details began resurfacing in my memory. Tiny moments I had dismissed at the time. A visit months earlier when Vanessa wandered upstairs alone while supposedly looking for a bathroom. A dinner where she somehow knew details about one of my doctor's appointments that I had never shared. A strange comment she made after seeing me nauseous one morning, long before we publicly announced the pregnancy. At the time, I assumed she was guessing. Now I was no longer sure. The pieces did not fit together perfectly, but they pointed toward something unsettling. Vanessa seemed to know more about my life than she should have. Claire noticed the change in me almost immediately. We met for coffee one afternoon and she listened while I described everything. Unlike most people, Claire never tried to soften the truth. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and asked a question nobody else had considered. What if the ultrasound was never the goal? I stared at her, confused. She explained that everyone was focused on the image itself. But perhaps the image was only a tool. The real objective might have been humiliating me publicly. The baby shower, the microphone, the stolen announcement, the dramatic reveal. Those actions fit Vanessa's personality far better than some complicated medical scheme. I wanted Claire to be wrong. Unfortunately, the idea made sense. Vanessa had always chased attention. Every major family milestone somehow became her stage. My wedding, Daniel's promotion, holiday gatherings, birthday dinners. Why would my pregnancy be any different? The more I thought about it, the more obvious the pattern became. She had not simply wanted to participate in my announcement. She wanted ownership of it. She wanted the room focused on her. The ultrasound was merely proof that she possessed information nobody else had. It gave her power. It gave her control. And when that control slipped away, she panicked. Meanwhile, the hospital investigation continued. Susan called several times with updates. They had identified the employee who printed the image. A receptionist named Amanda. At first, Amanda denied any wrongdoing. Later, she admitted someone had asked her for a favor. The details were still being verified, but the situation was becoming increasingly serious. Susan could not share everything yet due to legal restrictions, but she assured me that progress was being made. Every update deepened my unease. Real employees, real records, real violations. What began as family humiliation was turning into something far more dangerous. Then came another surprise. One evening, Mark showed up at our front door alone. I had never seen him without Vanessa nearby. He looked exhausted, older somehow. His shoulders sagged as though he had been carrying something heavy for weeks. Daniel invited him inside, and the three of us sat around the kitchen table. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then Mark admitted that Vanessa had been acting strangely for months. Secretive phone calls, hidden emails, sudden anger whenever anyone questioned her. He insisted he did not know anything about the ultrasound, but he clearly suspected more than he was saying. As the conversation continued, Mark revealed something that made my stomach tighten. A few weeks before the baby shower, Vanessa had become obsessed with learning the baby's gender. She repeatedly pressured him to ask Daniel. She searched social media accounts for clues. She even claimed she already knew information that nobody else did. At the time, Mark assumed she was bluffing. Now he was not so sure. The image, the appointment details, the timing. Suddenly, her behavior looked less like curiosity and more like an unhealthy fixation. Something about my pregnancy had become extremely important to her. After Mark left, Daniel and I sat in silence. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen windows. The house felt smaller somehow, less safe. I kept replaying one particular detail from the conversation. Vanessa had claimed to possess information nobody else knew. Why? What could possibly make my pregnancy so important to her? The answer refused to come. Every possibility seemed irrational. Yet the evidence kept growing. The stolen announcement, the false ultrasound, the lies, the shifting stories, the secretive behavior. All of it pointed toward a truth that remained hidden just beyond reach. 3 days later, Susan called again. This time her voice sounded different, more cautious, more serious than before. She explained that the investigation had uncovered communications between the receptionist and an outside individual. The hospital's legal department was now involved. She could not reveal the person's identity yet, but she advised me to keep records of every interaction with Vanessa moving forward. Every text message, every email, every voicemail, everything. When I hung up, I felt a wave of dread unlike anything I had experienced since the baby shower. The hospital was no longer treating Vanessa as an annoying relative who crossed boundaries. They were treating her as someone potentially connected to a deliberate privacy violation. That night, while organizing old messages on my phone, I stumbled across something I had forgotten completely. It was a text Vanessa sent nearly 4 months earlier. At the time, it seemed harmless. Now it made my blood run cold. The message contained only 6 words. "Trust me, I already know everything." And for the first time, I started wondering whether Vanessa's obsession with my pregnancy had begun long before any baby shower was planned. The moment I reread that message, I felt a cold pressure settle in my chest. Trust me, I already know everything. 4 months earlier, I had dismissed it as another one of Vanessa's strange comments. She often spoke in dramatic ways, dropping vague statements that made people ask questions. Back then, I assumed she was trying to convince me she knew I was pregnant before anyone else. Now the words felt different. They felt deliberate, calculated, as if she wanted me to remember them later. I forwarded the message to Susan the next morning. Within an hour, she called back. Her voice remained professional, but I could hear the urgency underneath. She asked whether I had any other unusual communications from Vanessa. I spent most of the morning searching through old texts, emails, and social media messages. At first, nothing stood out. Then I started noticing a pattern. Vanessa constantly hinted at information she should not have known. She referenced doctor's appointments I never discussed. She mentioned days when I felt sick despite never seeing me. Once, she even texted me asking whether everything looked good after a checkup that I had not told anyone about except Daniel. When I showed the messages to Daniel, he sat quietly for several minutes. Finally, he looked up and asked the question both of us had been avoiding. How long had she been watching us? The idea sounded paranoid when spoken aloud, but neither of us could dismiss it anymore. Too many coincidences had piled up. Too many details pointed in the same direction. Whatever was happening, Vanessa's interest in my pregnancy went far beyond normal family curiosity. A week later, Susan called again. This time she asked us to come to the hospital. The request immediately made my stomach tighten. Daniel left work early and we drove there in near silence. When we arrived, Susan met us in the same private office where our first meeting had taken place. The compliance officer was there as well, along with another woman from the hospital's legal department. Their expressions told me this was no routine update. Susan began carefully. The investigation had confirmed that Amanda, the receptionist, printed the stolen ultrasound image. She initially claimed she acted alone. However, electronic records and phone logs proved otherwise. Someone had repeatedly contacted her over several months. Someone had requested information about patients. Someone had offered gifts in exchange for favors. The legal representative paused before continuing. That person was Vanessa. For a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard her. The room seemed strangely quiet. The air conditioner hummed softly. Papers rested neatly on the table. Everything appeared normal except for the fact that my entire understanding of the situation had just shattered. Vanessa had not stumbled upon the ultrasound accidentally. She had not mistaken someone else's records for mine. She had not made an impulsive mistake at a baby shower. She had actively pursued private medical information. The legal representative explained that Amanda eventually admitted everything during questioning. Vanessa first approached her months earlier. The two women knew each other through a fitness class. At first, the request seemed harmless. Vanessa simply wanted confirmation that I was pregnant. Later, she wanted appointment dates, then ultrasound schedules, then copies of records. Amanda repeatedly violated hospital policy. Each violation became easier than the last. By the time the baby shower arrived, obtaining a printed image felt routine to her. I felt physically sick. Not because of the pregnancy, not because of stress, because someone I saw at family dinners had spent months secretly collecting information about my unborn child. Every appointment I attended, every test result, every milestone, Vanessa had treated my pregnancy like a project. Daniel's face hardened in a way I had never seen before. He asked why. The room fell silent. Unfortunately, the hospital could not answer that question. They knew what happened. They knew how it happened. They even knew who participated. But motives were harder to prove. Vanessa claimed she only wanted to surprise me with a special baby shower gift. Amanda claimed she believed the information would stay private within the family. Neither explanation matched reality. As we left the hospital, my phone began vibrating. Vanessa. I ignored the call. She called again, and again. By the time we reached the parking lot, she had called 7 times. Then the text messages started. Please answer. We need to talk. You don't understand. They are twisting everything. The last message made me laugh bitterly. Because for the first time, there was very little left to twist. The facts were clear. Vanessa had been caught. That evening, Linda arrived at our house unexpectedly. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red from crying. I had never seen her like that before. For years, she defended Vanessa no matter what happened. Now she seemed genuinely shaken. She sat at our kitchen table and admitted that investigators had already contacted Mark. Everything was falling apart. Mark had learned about Amanda. He had learned about the stolen records. And during a massive argument earlier that day, Vanessa finally confessed part of the truth. Not all of it. Only enough to make things worse. According to Linda, Vanessa admitted she became obsessed with my pregnancy. shortly after learning that she could not have children naturally. The words hit me harder than I expected. For a brief moment, sympathy surfaced. Infertility is heartbreaking. I knew enough about loss to understand pain. But sympathy disappeared almost immediately when Linda continued. Instead of seeking support, Vanessa became consumed by jealousy. Every appointment I attended reminded her of what she wanted. Every update made her resentful. Every milestone felt personal. Rather than process those emotions in a healthy way, she focused entirely on me. Linda cried while telling us this. She kept repeating that she never knew, that she would have helped Vanessa, that none of this made sense. But it did make sense. Not as an excuse, not as a justification, but as an explanation. Vanessa wanted access because she could not tolerate not having it. She wanted control because she could not control her own situation. And eventually, she crossed every boundary available to her. The next few days were chaos. Relatives called nonstop. Some apologized for doubting me. Others wanted details. A few still defended Vanessa. Family groups exploded with arguments. People chose sides. Stories spread. The baby shower became family legend almost overnight. The woman who stole a pregnancy announcement. The woman who displayed someone else's ultrasound. The woman who secretly accessed medical records. Each version grew larger than the last. Then came the final revelation. The one that changed everything. The one nobody saw coming. It happened during a meeting between investigators and Amanda. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Amanda finally provided every message she exchanged with Vanessa. Thousands of texts, months of communication, requests, instructions, questions, photos, voice notes. The hospital shared only a small portion with us, but it was enough. Buried within those conversations was a detail that stunned everyone involved. Vanessa never intended to reveal my actual ultrasound. Because she never had it. She spent months trying to obtain it. Every attempt failed. Amanda could access appointment schedules and records, but certain ultrasound files required additional permissions. Vanessa became increasingly frustrated. Days before the baby shower, she demanded something she could use. Anything, any image, any proof. Amanda panicked. Instead of admitting failure, she printed another patient's ultrasound and gave it to Vanessa. Vanessa knew it was not mine. She knew. The room seemed to disappear around me when I heard that. She knew. Every explanation, every excuse, every tear, every apology. Gone. Vanessa knowingly walked into my baby shower carrying another woman's medical records. She knowingly displayed them in front of dozens of people. She knowingly pretended they belonged to me. All because she wanted attention. All because she wanted control. All because she wanted to prove she knew something nobody else did. Daniel stared at the investigation summary in disbelief. Even Linda could not defend her anymore. Neither could Mark, especially after another truth emerged. Amanda revealed that Vanessa repeatedly described the baby shower as her moment. Not mine. Hers. In message after message, Vanessa referred to the event as a reveal. Her reveal. Her surprise. Her announcement. She genuinely believed she deserved ownership over my pregnancy. That discovery broke something inside the family. Not anger. Not disappointment. Trust. The kind of trust that takes years to build. The kind that disappears overnight. A week later, Mark asked to meet us again. This time he looked different. Not tired. Defeated. He told us he had moved out. He could not stay with Vanessa anymore. The lies were too large. The betrayal too deep. He admitted there were other incidents he ignored over the years. Manipulations, deceptions, stories that never quite added up. For the first time, he was seeing the pattern clearly. And once he saw it, he could not unsee it. I listened quietly while he spoke. Part of me felt sorry for him. Part of me remembered every family gathering where he stood beside Vanessa while she humiliated me. Healing would take time. Forgiveness even longer. As summer moved forward, the legal consequences accelerated. Amanda lost her job. Licensing boards became involved. The hospital prepared civil action. Police investigators reviewed the privacy violations. What began as family drama had become a legal nightmare. Meanwhile, Vanessa disappeared. No social media, No family gatherings. No public statements. Nothing. For weeks, nobody heard from her. Then one evening, completely unexpectedly, she appeared at my front door. Alone. No makeup. No carefully chosen outfit. No audience. Just Vanessa, standing on the porch, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she looked at my stomach, at the child she had spent months obsessing over, and she whispered something that sent a chill through my entire body. I never wanted your baby. I wanted your life. And in that moment, I finally understood that the truth had been far bigger than jealousy, far bigger than attention, and far bigger than a stolen ultrasound. When Vanessa said those words, I never wanted your baby. I wanted your life. The world seemed to stop around me. For months, I had been searching for explanations. Jealousy, attention, resentment, insecurity. Every possibility felt incomplete. None of them fully explained why she crossed so many lines. None of them explained why she risked relationships, legal consequences, and her own reputation. But standing there on my porch, with her shoulders slumped and her eyes empty, I finally saw something I had missed all along. Vanessa was not trying to become part of my life. She was trying to replace it. I stood frozen while she stared at me. For the first time since I met her, she looked completely exhausted. Not dramatic. Not theatrical. Not manipulative. Just tired. The exhaustion of someone who had spent years chasing something she could never actually have. Daniel stepped onto the porch behind me. The moment Vanessa saw him, she looked away. Not because she was afraid, because she was ashamed. And that might have been the saddest thing I had ever seen. For years, she had controlled every room she entered. She knew how to redirect conversations, how to gain sympathy, how to make herself the victim, how to leave everyone doubting their own memories. But none of those tools worked anymore. The truth had stripped them away. The audience was gone. Only reality remained. Vanessa sat on the porch steps and spoke quietly. She told us things she had never admitted before. She described watching Daniel and me build our marriage. She talked about our little house, our routines, our plans, the way we laughed together, the way we supported one another. From the outside, she believed our life was perfect. She never saw the arguments, the fears, the losses, the nights we worried about money, the months we spent grieving after the miscarriage. She only saw the parts people shared. And over time, she convinced herself that everything came easily to me. When she struggled with infertility, that belief became something darker. Every pregnancy announcement felt personal. Every baby photo felt cruel. Every milestone felt like proof that life was rewarding everyone except her. Instead of facing that pain, she started comparing. Comparing became resentment. Resentment became obsession. And obsession eventually became destruction. I listened quietly. Part of me felt compassion. Pain can make people do terrible things. But another part of me remembered every lie, every humiliation, every invasion of privacy. Pain explains behavior. It does not erase consequences. When Vanessa finished speaking, she looked at me. There was no anger left in her expression, only regret. Then she apologized. Not the polished apologies she used to give after family arguments. Not the apologies designed to make herself look good. A real apology. Simple, direct, without excuses. She apologized for the baby shower, for the lies, for the stolen records, for making my pregnancy about herself, for turning one of the happiest moments of my life into one of the most stressful. When she finished, tears rolled down her face. I believed she meant every word, and yet something inside me remained unchanged. Because forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. One can return. The other sometimes cannot. After several minutes, Vanessa stood. She looked at Daniel, then at me, then at my stomach. She wished the baby a healthy future, and she left. That was the last time I saw her, at least for a very long time. The weeks that followed felt strangely peaceful. Not because everything was fixed. Far from it. There were still legal proceedings, family tensions, uncomfortable conversations, but the constant chaos was gone. The storm had finally passed. For the first time in months, I could focus on my pregnancy instead of the drama surrounding it. I painted the nursery. Daniel assembled furniture while pretending he did not need instructions. Claire helped organize baby clothes. My mother spent weekends bringing over food I never asked for but always appreciated. Little by little, normal life returned. And with it came something I had almost forgotten. Joy. The genuine kind. The kind that does not depend on anyone else's approval. The kind that grows quietly. One afternoon, while sorting gifts from the baby shower, I found several unopened cards. Most contained sweet messages. Encouragement. Advice. Love. Then I found one I had somehow missed. It was from an elderly aunt who left early that day. Inside was a handwritten note. It said something simple. Do not let someone else's darkness convince you that your light is too bright. I read it 3 times. Then I placed it inside the baby's memory box. Because somehow those words captured everything I had learned. For too long, I had tried to make myself smaller. Quieter. Less noticeable. Less threatening. I tolerated behavior that should have been challenged. I excused disrespect because I wanted peace. I accepted discomfort because I wanted family harmony. But real peace cannot exist without boundaries. And family harmony built on silence is not harmony at all. As summer turned into autumn, the legal cases reached their conclusions. Amanda accepted responsibility for violating privacy laws. Her career in healthcare ended. The hospital implemented new security measures. The patient whose records were stolen received compensation and support. The system had failed her. At least now people were being held accountable. Vanessa faced consequences as well. Financial penalties, civil settlements, court supervision. But oddly enough, those consequences never felt like the most important part of the story. The legal outcome mattered. Of course it did. But the deeper consequence was something no court could measure. She lost the trust of nearly everyone who loved her. And rebuilding trust takes far longer than losing it. Mark eventually finalized their separation. Linda entered counseling. Several family relationships remained strained. The entire family changed. Some connections grew stronger. Others disappeared. Nothing returned exactly to the way it had been before. And maybe that was necessary. Because sometimes the truth does not restore the past. Sometimes it clears space for a better future. 3 months later, our daughter was born. The labor was long, exhausting, beautiful, terrifying, wonderful. Every emotion seemed to exist at once. When the nurse finally placed her in my arms, the room disappeared. The investigations disappeared. The arguments disappeared. The baby shower disappeared. Everything disappeared except her. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, a strong cry, a perfect heartbeat. Daniel cried harder than I did. He still denies it, but everyone in that delivery room knows the truth. The first weeks of motherhood were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diapers. Yet somehow they were also the happiest weeks of my life. Not because everything was easy, because it definitely was not, but because every day reminded me what truly mattered. Not appearances, not family politics, not attention, not competition. Love. Simple, ordinary love. The kind that survives hard seasons. The kind that remains when everything else falls apart. Several months after our daughter was born, I received a letter. No return address. No explanation. Just my name on the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. From Vanessa. The letter was short. She explained that she had moved to another state. Started therapy. Taken responsibility for her actions. She did not ask for forgiveness. She did not ask for contact. She did not ask for another chance. Instead, she thanked me. Thanked me for refusing to excuse what she did. Thanked me for forcing the truth into the open. Thanked me for helping her confront parts of herself she had avoided for years. At the bottom of the page was one final sentence. I hope your daughter grows up knowing her worth before the world tries to define it for her. I folded the letter slowly, then placed it inside a drawer. Not because I wanted to forget it, but because some stories deserve to stay in the past. Today, when I look back on everything that happened, I no longer think about the humiliation first. I do not think about the microphone, the stolen announcement, the fake ultrasound, or even the investigation. I think about what came afterward. The boundaries I learned to build, the people who stood beside me, the strength I discovered when I had no choice but to find it. Most importantly, I think about my daughter. She is older now. Curious, fearless, always asking questions, always wanting to understand how things work. Sometimes she sits in my lap and flips through family photo albums. One day she found pictures from that baby shower. The decorations, the cake, the balloons. She smiled and asked if it was a happy day. I looked at the photos for a long moment. Then I smiled back, because the answer was more complicated than she could understand. And yet somehow very simple. Yes, it became one. Not because of what happened, but because of what I learned. Some people will try to take your voice. Some will try to rewrite your story. Some will try to convince you that your happiness belongs to them. Let them try. Your life remains yours. Your truth remains yours. And eventually, no matter how loud the lies become, the truth finds a way to speak for itself. Looking back, I learned that no one has the right to steal your voice, your joy, or your story, no matter who they are. What began as one of the most painful and humiliating moments of my life became a lesson about boundaries, self-respect, and the people who truly stand by your side when everything falls apart. If this story touched you in any way, let me know in the comments by writing, "I made it to the end, so I know you stayed with me through this entire journey." I would also love to hear what you would have done in my situation. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story. Thank you for being here and for sharing this experience with me until the very end.